Morning. Thank you all for joining us for our Connecticut State and Federal Export Resources webinar. We are joined with many panelists today who have their own unique expertise in exporting. So joining us will be the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development, Connecticut SBDC, the Export-Import Bank of the United States, the US SBA, and the US Commercial Service of the Department of Commerce. I'm going to now begin the program. So I just want to go into quickly what we do for exporters and that each of the presenters will be focusing on in their presentation. First, there's exporting advice and business counseling available, as well as global trade services, information on credits, insurance, financing for export sales, as well as grants to support the exporters. So I'd like to now introduce our panelists. Helping on the Connecticut Companies Export topic will be Melissa Grosso with the US Commercial Service. And then supporting Connecticut export activities will be Laura Jaworski and Aaron Knight, both with the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development. And we're actually very fortunate today to have a business perspective, and that's going to be shared by Beverly Dacey, president of Amadex Products. We will then go into planning the sale with Denise Wetford, a business advisor with the Connecticut Small Business Development Center. And then financing the export, what that means will be Richard Foy with the EXIM Bank. And then joining that conversation will be Joy Raycraft with the Small Business Administration. So some questions we want you to thinking about during the presentation that will be addressed is, why should my company consider exporting? What sort of export assistance is available from the federal government? And how can I identify and vet new international customers or distributors, especially if I'm not able to travel to meet them face-to-face as we see at this time. So with that, I'd like to introduce Melissa Grosso with the US Commercial Service.
Great, thank you so much, Lisa. Really pleased to be here. So as Lisa mentioned, I really wanted to just take a couple minutes to set the stage as to why US exports matter. And really, in short, it's all about purchasing power. So as you can see on this slide, about 70% of the world's purchasing power is outside of the United States. So that lends tremendous opportunity for you as a US company and a US manufacturer service provider. Next slide, please, Lisa. And as you can see here, to further illustrate this, the World Bank has pulled together these stats in terms of percentage of countries' GDP that's generated by exports. As you can see here, the United States stands at about 12%, which stands lower than many of our trading partners around the world. So again, certainly we have some room for growth, which is a good potential for you as a US company. Next slide, please. So our role, and actually, can you go 2 slides? Thank you so much. Thanks, Lisa. So really, at the US Commercial Service, we are the trade promotion agency of the US federal government under the US Department of Commerce. And really, our work on a day-to-day basis is to help to fill that space that I just mentioned. We can go forward 1 slide, please, Lisa. So really, our job is about increasing US exports, by which we're going to increase, and we continue to increase US jobs. And how we do that is through a really unique network of my counterparts who sit at US embassies and consulates in over 80 countries worldwide. They really are industry experts. They understand how business is done in their particular country. They speak the language, they understand the cultural nuances of doing business in those countries. So they really are your best advisors, whether it's doing business in Brazil, doing business in Taiwan, France, elsewhere. And as an agency, we are congressionally funded based on the results that we show. So we really are hyper-focused on helping US companies to meet and exceed their export goals and to really increase their sales internationally. Next slide, please. And we do that in a variety of ways. So on a day-to-day basis, I'm working with Connecticut companies of a variety of industry sectors to help them to develop their export strategy, to do the counseling with my counterparts at our US embassies and consulates internationally to help those Connecticut companies to understand export regulations, compliance, export documentation issues, and then to connect you directly with potential partners internationally. Next slide, please. I'm not going to go into great detail. You will get the slides after the presentation. I would just like to highlight a couple pieces on this particular slide. First, the market intelligence piece. We have a new program called the RAISE program that a colleague of mine in our North Dakota office has started. We actually just worked with a company last week in Connecticut to execute the program. And the amount of data that is available that the company could play around with to determine what is the market that they should get into, it's absolutely tremendous. It really is tremendous. So that is a definitely a program that I would encourage folks to take a look at. I'll send. Oh, I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. I'm wondering if folks can put their mics on mute if they're not speaking. So I will be happy to send some additional information on the RAISE program. The other piece that I'd like to just focus on is the business matchmaking side of things. Again, if you've honed in on the French market or the Brazilian market as your market of choice, I would work directly with your company to help you and my colleagues in those countries to help you understand whether that market actually does make sense for you. And then further from that, connect you directly with pre-vetted companies who meet your criteria for a potential business partner. It's one of our most popular services. It's one of our most effective services. There are fees for some of these services, but as you'll hear from my colleagues from the Department of Economic and Community Development, there's a grant that that the state is administering that can help to offset some of those costs. So again, the market intelligence and the business matchmaking pieces have really been key to many Connecticut companies in helping them to achieve their international goals. And at the bottom, I've included a link which we'll send out after the program to our full list of virtual services and any prices that are included. I'll say that most of the work that I do on a day-to-day basis does not include, it's all free of charge, but some of the more honed-in services and targeted services do have a fee with them. We can go to the next slide, please. And just to close things out, I just wanted to mention this statistic. This was from a study from the the Institute for International Economics that mentions that 8.5% of companies who are exporting are less likely to go out of business. So as you as a Connecticut company are thinking about whether or not to export, I'd just like to encourage you to keep that statistic in mind. And then my last slide, Lisa, we can go to the next one, please. I just wanted to highlight the impact that exporting has specifically on Connecticut. You can see some pretty impressive numbers here. 63,000 jobs approximately are supported by exports from Connecticut companies. 90% of Connecticut exporters are small to medium-sized companies. And I would say, by and large, 97 to 98% of the companies that I'm working with on a daily basis fall into that small to medium-sized category. And that's part of the reason that my agency exists, is to really hone in on the small to medium-sized companies to help you to define and meet your export goals. So with that, I'll thank you for your time, and I'd like to turn things over to Laura Jaworski and Aaron Knight from the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development. And they're really going to jump into the Connecticut STEP grant. So talking about the types of activities that are eligible, what the funding is there for. So I'll turn things over to Laura and Aaron. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much, Melissa. That was great info. Aaron and I are very pleased to be here this morning to talk about the State Trade Expansion Program, or STEP grant as it's known for short. These are grant funds that we're very happy to administer from the Small Business Administration that are geared towards small businesses. And as we're moving through these 3 brief slides, we'd like companies and folks on the webinar to keep in mind 3 key questions when it comes to export grant funding. Companies who are looking to funding for their small business to develop or expand an export market, what kind of programs are available and what are those program qualifications? What sorts of activities are eligible? What kind of funding can a company expect to receive? And where can a company apply for these funds and what documents are necessary to apply? Aaron and I are going to review these 3 topics as we have a lot of great information and good info from presenters here today. So if you can move to the next slide, Lisa, thanks so much. So the STEP grant from the Small Business Administration has three purposes. It's to help companies who've never exported before get into the export market. It's to help companies who currently export increase their export volume. And it's to help companies explore trade opportunities that they previously weren't able to because of financial constraints. So companies who are eligible must be a small business. And what does that mean? A company has to comply with SBA size standards, and the primary way to do so, and the key way to do so, is for a company to use their NAICS code. That's a 6-digit code. Whatever NAICS code best fits your company. We provide a crosswalk of size standards that's divided by number of employees if you're a manufacturer, or sales figures if you're a service company. And if you use the crosswalk in your NAICS code, it'll give you what that threshold is to be under for a company to qualify as small. That's the most important thing, as these funds are geared towards small businesses. A company must also have been in business for more than 1 year. It must have sufficient resources to bear costs associated with exports. It must have staff and management support to do so. As we all know, it does take some work and some legwork to conduct exports. It's not a quick game. It takes some effort. It takes some homework. So a company must understand that when they enter into it. A company must not be debarred from doing business with the federal government. That essentially means that a company has to be in good tax standing. A company must also have 51% US content and have a strategic plan for exporting. And we want to stress that these funds are for companies who are expanding their exports or are brand new to the world of exports. Whether you're a market expansion or new to exports, STEP has programs and funding that may be eligible and available to help take your company to the next level. So we do want to stress that for small businesses, whether you're increasing your volume or just getting started, STEP could be for you. STEP can help with a lot of the activities that Melissa described in her slide that are provided by the Department of Commerce, including the Gold Key, the matchmaking, the business-to-business matchmaking, the company profiles. But there's lots of other activities that STEP can be used for. Trade shows, virtual trade shows. And that's a point that Erin and I would like to stress. Because of COVID, so many trade shows were canceled or have pivoted to a virtual platform, a virtual platform of doing B2B matchmaking, of virtual exhibits, online sessions. Those are all things that are still STEP eligible. So even though a trade show may not be happening in person, it is something that a company could consider for STEP. Trade missions are STEP eligible, as are virtual trade missions. We've had some groups conduct one-day super trade missions online, but they've been working again, and that key component is B2B. Companies can also use STEP for design of international marketing media, such as brochures, different collateral, website translation, localization, search engine optimization. We mentioned the commerce services and export training. These are the major buckets of categories that companies are using STEP towards. If there's something that your company is thinking about and you're not sure if it's going to fit, give us a call. We're happy to walk it through with you to see if it could be a fit for the STEP grant. Erin and I try to be as explicit as we can be in our program guidelines, but there's always a company every year who comes up with a great new idea, and we say, geez, we never thought about using STEP in that fashion, and we're happy to talk to companies about that. Obviously, given circumstances, it's been a great time to do other projects with STEP, like translating your website, working on international brochures. We're hoping that the trade show circuit starts to pick up as we start to see some light and some hope with the vaccinations. And of course, companies always want to know, well, what kind of funding can we expect to get from STEP? And I think we should stress at the offset that this is not upfront money. It's a partial reimbursement. So a company who is eligible will submit an application and the necessary paperwork, which Erin will shortly review, and they can expect to receive 75% of eligible expenses up to a maximum of $7,500 per activity. However, a company can be eligible for up to $15,000 per year. So that means a company can engage in more than one activity in a program year. We calculate all previous STEP fiscal year requests towards that funding limit. And certain programs do have threshold limits that are set by the SBA. Our program guidelines do go into that, and in the interest of time, we won't detail all of those out in the call. The webinar slides and the program guidelines will be disseminated afterwards, and so all that information will be in there. But I think it's important to keep in mind that hard costs, registration fees, booth fees, participation fees, those are all eligible costs. Things that are not eligible are travel, passport fees, networking receptions, product samples, salaries. Those are things that STEP can't cover for a company. And now I'm pleased to introduce my DECD colleague who's going to walk through some of the mechanics of applying for the grant. Aaron?
Sure. So as Laura said, the most important thing moving forward is either reviewing our program guidelines or going to our website. Our website is www.stepgrant.smapply.io. If the program guidelines, they'll be sent out after this presentation. They'll have a link to the website where you can go directly to the website. Our website includes an overview of what the program is and kind of step by step how to proceed with submitting an application. After reviewing the program guidelines and determining if the export activity or the activity that you're interested in meets our criteria as an export activity, you can move forward with submitting an application. To submit an application, you want to register on our website using your email and create a password, and then click it. You'll find a link in your email to activate your account. Once your account is activated, you'll complete a series of steps to submit an application. The first is completing the actual application form, which is an online form which takes you through detailing your company information, background, contact information for the company, background information on your export activity, and some questions that we have to ask for SBA purposes to track proposed metrics on your export activity. You'll submit that application online, and then there will be a series of steps to complete the online forms, the additional forms that are required. So you'll move forward to complete a self-certification form, which determines as an SBA form, which determines that you're an eligible small business concern. All these forms you'll be able to download from our website, complete and sign by hand, and then you'll scan them and then upload them back to our website. You'll also want to, as Laura referenced earlier, you'll review your NAICS code. So you want to make sure that you're an eligible small business per the SBA size standards, and we have directions on how to do that. But basically making sure that you have either less than a certain number of employees, usually 500, but in some categories it's larger, or you, if you're a service company, you have less than a certain amount of revenue, that still determines that you're an eligible small business. You'll also download and sign your federal department form. You'll download and sign 2 forms for the state of Connecticut, the state of Connecticut agency vendor form. That allows us to add you to our online, our payment processing system, and then your W-9 form so that we have the tax information. And then you also download and complete an export plan. We have a template where you'll download a strategic export plan, a Word document that you can complete and submit to us on your company letterhead. So pretty straightforward. You'll download that, give us some background information on what your reasons for attending the trade show or participating in export activity might be, and submit that as an export plan back to us. Once you upload all of these documents, complete the online application, you'll be able to submit your application to us. We'll be notified that your application has been submitted electronically, and then we'll have some time to review it. And if approved, you'll receive an email notification back, and we confirm how much you're eligible for as a reimbursement. I'll just reiterate one more time, this is a reimbursement program. All applications need to be submitted prior to an activity, and all applications need to be submitted no later than September 15th, 2021 for this funding round. So it's April now. If you have something coming up in June, July, something coming up in September, you're more than welcome to submit an application, this month, next month, in advance of your program. Once we process your eligibility, you'll be in queue and you'll have those funds allocated for your activity. That's pretty much it for now. If you have additional questions, we have contact information on our website so that you we can help walk you through the application process. I'll pass it over to Beverly Dacey, who's going to provide some company perspectives. She's participated in the STEP program and also, I believe, Department of Commerce as well.
Good morning, everybody. It's very exciting to be able to share our experience with STEP with all of you. And it is a terrific program for anybody who's contemplating putting their toes in the big sea of export. For our company, we're a small business. We manufacture stain removal products. And consequently, via the internet, I would say that we get a lot of inquiries about our product from people all over the world. Because of that, we decided we really needed to consider exporting, but we really weren't sure where to start. And as we began doing our research, we found that the STEP program, the people at DCD, the people at Commerce are tremendously helpful in helping you figure out exactly how to get started and where among the smorgasbord of opportunities you want to go with your particular company's needs. In our case, we were focused primarily on certain markets throughout the world. And to get started, we decided we would pursue a trade show in Europe so that we could begin to address the needs in that part of the world. That trade show really ignited everything that has emerged since for our company with regard to exporting. Within the STEP program, we've used the resources of the reimbursement for the trade show itself, which is terrific because it's very expensive with travel and such, and very helpful to get that reimbursement. So it gives you the resources to put the money into other things for growing that part of your business. We also used it for marketing materials and for translation. We're finding, particularly like with Canada, they need everything bilingual. So the ability to pursue those markets in Canada using STEP and their translation reimbursements has helped us tremendously in beginning to move up now to the next step of where we're going with our export program. That's, I think, the real magic of this program is that it can evolve with you. So as you're growing and you're growing your company in that market sector, working with everyone and STEP can help you design something that's specific for your needs. Also, identifying distributors in different countries can be very daunting. And here again, these resources can be tremendously helpful in working with you to do that. So from our experience, what I would say to everyone is don't be overwhelmed by this. If anything, find this as an opportunity to really get started and really pursue this. It is what's happening in this world. It's a global world now. We can't, and the most exciting thing I found is that people love American products. The receptivity to us at the trade shows we've done has been enormous. And even just this past week, I got reorders from my distributor in Germany, my distributor in the UK, and an inquiry from someone we had met at a trade show last January who's interested in doing some work with us. So it's amazing how this thing can snowball. And I just wanted to share this with everyone so that you won't feel intimidated and know that you've got resources there that will walk you through this and help you grow your business.
Great. Thank you so much, Beverly, for those wonderful insights and your testimonial. I think that you are one of the great examples out there of how programs have come together to work and support businesses who, are new to market and really want to be able to expand and grow. I'm Denise Whitford. I'm a business advisor with the Small Business Development Center here in Connecticut. And as we start going through the slides here for the CTSBDC, I just want to let you know that we offer we are the most comprehensive small business assistance network in the United States and its territories. And we offer no-cost, in-depth business advising in 4 key areas. One is pre-venture. The second is access to capital. The third is operations, and the last is customer acquisition. So as we go through this presentation, I want you to think about and keep these next 3 questions in mind as you go through the rest of the presentation for SBDC. And that is, how do I evaluate my product and prepare my business for international? How do you look at that from an international perspective? And then how do I prepare for a discussion with my bank about export financing, and what are the financing opportunities to take care of my export receivables? What are the key questions that my lender will ask me about my business? So as we go through this, keep that in perspective. Could you go to the next slide, please, Lisa? Please go to the next slide. Today, I'd like to focus on our export services. And as I indicated earlier, we offer no-cost export services in a number of areas that are built around 4 domains of knowledge and essential for business who are looking to expand an overseas market. And that includes global business management, which is helping you evaluate that new to export companies to develop strategies and tactics. Global marketing is identifying the potential markets for customers and segments to work with our partners, even at the U.S. Commercial Service and the DECD, as we look at different sales representatives in those other countries. The remaining 2 domains revolve around supply chain management and trade finance. So I just want to reiterate that SBDC advisors take an in-depth export assistance for new to export businesses, as well as those looking for exporting and expanding in overseas markets. Our efforts strengthen the companies and also help them diversify in the Connecticut economy, create additional jobs, and support future competitiveness for Connecticut companies, and help restore America's balance through trade into those global markets. Some of those specific areas might involve industry research, export planning strategies, even an export finance preparation, and an export marketing plan. So let's share a few of these examples in a little bit more depth and see how we can serve our clients. If you can go to the next slide, please. The Export Readiness Assessment Tool is a survey that helps us determine your company's strength and opportunities when deciding whether to reach out into international markets and audiences. This questionnaire will help you evaluate the company and the product readiness for a series of questions that address characteristics of successful exporters. And when you look at this assessment, it consists of 5 separate domains, and each dimension is scored in 4 areas for a total of 20 questions. Your score along each dimension is an overall outlook that is explained at the end of the assessment. And once you've completed this questionnaire, the score helps you assess your export readiness, as well as identify areas your business needs to improve or strengthen to bring export activities to fruition. So we've administered this survey to about 35 different clients since January. And what we've determined is a number of things need to improve, but also that they're able to jump into the next series of events, which, if you can go to the next slide, involve market and industry research. And I want to touch on our ability here and talk a little bit about these 2 particular databases, because IBISWorld provides us with a rich resource of in-depth and concise business intelligence information. IBIS also taps into industry and related channels within those industries, providing insight into economic conditions. And it provides information about the economic communities and target markets. It also addresses any questions about industry supply chains and channels of distribution. So as Beverly was saying a little bit earlier, this is the type of research that you'd want to know. Is this particular market compatible for you and your business? And the second database is Euromonitor. And it's one of the leading independent providers of strategic market research. The folks here are stationed across the world and create data and analytics on thousands of products and services globally. And that market research connects your organization goals with global opportunities. Anything from sizing your market sales to understanding future product demand. And the research expertise covers a robust range of B2C and B2B industries. Once we've achieved these key milestones, we often collaborate with our friends again at the Department of Commerce to take a much deeper dive into specific market intelligence and additional customized services. If you can move to the next slide, please. After we've collected all this data, we also want to round out the client strategic export plan. And as Beverly said, and also Laura,
having an export plan helps you understand various facts and constraints and goals around your international efforts. It can be used to create a specific objective and decide on implementation schedules and even mark milestones for your success. It can also motivate your team to reach those goals because you can measure milestones and figure out what you've been doing right and where you need to improve. We advise you that you keep it simple. In the initial planning effort itself gradually generates more information and insight. As you learn more about exporting in your company's competitive position, the export plan will become more detailed. And our objective here is to help you draft a flexible management tool, not a static document. Those objectives that you carve out should be compared to actual results to measure the success of different strategies. And keeping in mind, the document would be modified routinely as additional information and experience is gained. A detailed plan is recommended for companies that intend to export directly, meaning you sell directly to the other user in the other country. If your company uses indirect export methods or sells through a third party's website, I think that plan would be much more simple and direct. So we've helped develop your idea. Once we've developed your idea, to determine your product and your business export potential, we'll then try to identify different countries of interest and maybe even a pricing strategy, which leads us then to refine that customer acquisition approach. We will also help you develop a marketing strategy that suits both traditional and digital means. But before we can help you implement that strategy, we want to take a deeper dive into your production capacity and your financial capacity to ensure that likelihood of success. And this all points us to that way in which you can prepare for a discussion with your bank about export financing and financing the export receivables. As we delve into the financial capacity of your business, we'll always draw attention to 3 basic questions that a bank will want to know. Can you pay? Will you pay? And what if you don't? And the can you pay aspect refers back to your cash flow analysis. Will you pay refers to your credit history and what you've done previously. And what if you don't refers to your collateral. So in short, the bank is going to want to review your past historical data, including your internal financials and your tax returns. It's all part of their due diligence. And so as you can see on this slide, we put this particular tool together. We call it our bottom line. And it helps small business owners who believe they're not really numbers people. As you can see on the valuable part of this tool is that we quickly bring a certain familiarity because we take your financial data and we plug it into a series of spreadsheets that populate projections and analysis. So if you find yourself asking you or your team, should I expand or should I limit my product offering? What are my funding options to expand my business into international markets? Or what are the considerations I need to make in order to ensure a secure financial future? And how do I best manage that cash flow in the process? Then the bottom line tool is probably one of those things that we want to immerse in with you right away. We also recommend that you keep a really good record keeping system, whether that be QuickBooks or Xero or Peachtree or something else. We want to make sure that you keep you as the business owner to review those documents at least monthly. If you're not a numbers person, we've got to be able to get you into that mode of understanding how these things work. It'll help you develop greater knowledge in different types of payment systems too. Like if you're asking for credit in advance or cash in advance, even letters of credit or documentary collections, or whether you have an open account with this particular client or you want to operate on consignment. It'll also help you project some portions of what the foreign exchange risk would be. And so if we can go to the next slide. I just want to reiterate too, no matter what stage of development a business is in, access to capital is critical to survival. And to discuss both traditional and non-traditional funding options with our clients, we then try to connect them to various lenders, angel investors, and even private equity when it's appropriate to meet their needs. This definitely helps small businesses hold a reasonable discussion with their bank about export financing and their export receivables. It also helps them drive a strategic plan, the best terms for investment preparation of financials and supporting documentation. So as you can see on the slide, we can certainly work with folks like the SBA and EXIM Bank, as well as the USDA. And I've outlined a few of them here, but also a couple of others that help us in the international marketplace, including export credit insurance. This will allow exporters to offer a competitive open exchange for foreign buyers while minimizing the risks of non-payment. Even creditworthy buyers could default at any time, and we've noticed that a lot during COVID. a variety of things happened in supply chain that really hindered a lot of credit being exchanged. And then in very unusual circumstances, factoring is one of those continuous short-term export sales for customer goods and services on an open account, if you will. It's generally more expensive, so we err on the side of caution, but it does offer 100% protection against the foreign buyer's inability to pay. So as we start going through the next portions here, I don't want to steal the thunder away from SBA and EXIM Bank, but I did want to make mention of them coming into play here. If we can go to the next slide. The SBDC also looks at international marketing, and we apply those strategies that are similar to domestic marketing, but it tends to be a little bit more challenging at times because you need to be able to appeal to a variety of cultures and ideals and tastes. Keeping in mind also that the laws and regulations are also different from place to place, and it also entails a greater risk and effort, which in turn requires a substantial amount of financial resources. And that's why we're so thrilled to be partnering today with the STEP program, because that can help defray a portion of those costs. But keeping in mind that international marketing activities still outline product, price, place, and promotion, but is customizing that in accordance with the preferences of different people in those areas. There are strong reasons to attract organizations to extend promotions globally, and those do include whether you have a huge market share and opportunity also to elongate the life of a particular product that you have. But it also provides a higher profit opportunity in those international markets than you might get here in the domestic market. As we heard earlier, more than 95% of our market potential is in other countries outside of the United States. That said, I just want to point to the fact that the SBDC can help you prepare that strategic marketing plan and consider the development of a global strategy that will create an awareness among the customers globally, including electronic media. And when we start thinking about the internet and how we would include social media marketing as well as e-commerce. We also want to explore with our clients opportunities to license the use of their manufacturing process or even trademark and patent. Even their name can be shared in a foreign country. So when you've worked through this with our clients, we also want to think about the opportunities to franchise or do a joint venture. We've done this with a few folks recently, and I want to say that moving them in through this process, we had to really consider a couple of things. How did they address their website? Did they localize it? And that would mean putting it into a more comprehensive process that includes translation and making the website accessible to culturally relevant targeted audience in a specific location. Or do they want to globalize it, which is a more functional and accessible way to a global audience, but it's not limited to a specific few countries or locations. In any event, translation is really very important. It's typically, as you know, that service where you convert one language to another. And I think that the STEP grant and working with our friends over at the U.S. Department of Commerce have proven really beneficial in this area. If we can go to the next slide, please. I just wanted to say how much I've enjoyed being here today and want to invite you to connect with us for a more in-depth look at business and export preparedness. I'm happy to help you again with your assessment of export planning, even market and industry research, and then converting that over into marketing and a website review. Financial preparation, again, is one of those major tools. It's the #1 reason people come to the SBDC. So with that said, I just want to say thank you again. I'd like to pass it over to Richard Foy at EXIM Bank.
Thank you. What a great presentation. Denise, SBDC is such a valuable resource to businesses. They can literally take years out of the learning curve for new exporters. I really encourage everybody to connect with them. So EXIM Bank. EXIM Bank is an independent government agency. We were established in 1934 as part of the New Deal. Our products really cover the spectrum from pre-export financing to post-export financing. If you need working capital to produce or procure goods for export, all the way through to insuring or guaranteeing loans made to the foreign buyer. Now, there's a common theme here in that EXIM tries to reduce the risk associated, the financial risk associated with exporting. We do that for different members, depending on their involvement. So for example, if a lender is making a loan to an exporter for production of goods, we would guarantee a loan in case the exporter defaults on that loan, we would pay them back. If you're extending a loan, so open payment terms to your buyer, we help protect your risk against non-payment by insuring those receivables. We can go to the next slide. Sales terms are an important thing to consider, and I'm going to focus on this just for a few minutes, because when you are starting to export, us as Americans tend to be very risk adverse, so we require payment in advance. That's where we're comfortable. Pay me, and then I'll send you the goods. Well, that can be very limiting in terms of sales growth, because on the flip side, the buyer, that's a very high risk for them to put out money, wait for the product to be received, and then try to sell the product, turn it into cash. That's a long time for them. So we try to even things out. Users use letters of credit to try to even that out, but it's not really helping the buyer that much, because you're still locking up their cash. You know, they need to lock up their line of credit to secure the letter of credit. So obviously, open account terms are the best for the buyer, because that allows them in many cases to receive the goods, sell them prior to paying you anything. That puts the exporter in a position, in a cash flow position, though. And we'll discuss that when we're working with Joe and the SBA. So ideally, you would be able to sell on open payment terms, not fear non-payment, and sell a lot more product to your foreign buyer because they have the ability to turn them. Next slide. We offer credit insurance on these receivables. And while primarily they are risk mitigation tools, they have other elements that are important to identify. So the risk protection, of course, it protects you against non-payment of that invoice for political risks as well as commercial risks. Commercial risks would be bankruptcy, insolvency, or any protracted default, where they don't pay in accordance with the contract. Political risk can be war, riot, insurrection, can be cancellation of an import or an export license, or currency inconvertibility, where they can't get US dollars out of the country, things of that nature. But it can also be used as a sales tool, and I alluded to that on the prior slide, because when you're able to sell on open payment terms, where maybe the guy down the street is requiring cash in advance, typically the buyer will be able to buy more product because they'll be able to put it into their sales system, right? Sell it more prior to paying you. So they're not restricted by their cash on hand. So it's very important. Foreign, China, they will sell on open terms, and it's all government backed. So this is who you're competing with in many cases. Now, financing aid, this is important as well. And like we said before, when you have a receivable that's insured, now you can go to your bank, and it can be an SBA loan, an EXIM loan, whatever, and that can be used as collateral for that loan. So a foreign receivable is worthless to a banker, but if it's insured, then it becomes a valuable asset that can be loaned on. So this is very important and can help in easing your cash burden when you're extending open payment terms, because when you have that insured receivable, you can go to the bank, get more money so that you can produce your next group of goods. You can keep manufacturing, keep buying, keep exporting. I think that's all my slides, but go to the next one just to make sure. Yeah, we have some questions I think that are here. So this is what I alluded to before. As an exporter, I'm always concerned about using all my cash to reduce an export order and then be fast with a payment delay to international shipping. Would it be better to use my line of credit to fund my working capital for international orders? And Joe and I will discuss this together. I think EXIM Bank and SBA, we both have very similar working capital guarantees. Now, these are loans or lines of credit that we protect the lender against non-payment. We do this to incentivize them to make loans to exporters. Typically, banks don't like working with exporters. They don't like the risk associated with it. They don't like the foreign receivable aspect and the fact that the goods are shipped overseas. There are many elements that they don't like holding without a guarantee. EXIM Bank and SBA both provide that guarantee. So in case there's a default, we would pay them back up to the agreed amount. There's different percentages for different levels and so on. So in many cases, exporters will establish a separate line of credit used solely for exporting, and they'll separate that from their domestic line. And that works well and then we can take the accounts receivable and use those as the borrowing base for that line of credit that's used for export. Separating it makes things a lot cleaner for the bank and for the exporter. Joe, do you have anything to add on? Is Joe on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. And which I think you covered some of this, but I'll jump in. So my name's Joe Raycraft. I'm with the SBA. I'm one of 22 export finance managers around the country. I handle the New England region, and I'm based in Hartford, Connecticut. My background's in banking, commercial lending, and trade finance, and I started with SBA just about 9 months ago. And to Rich's point, I kind of, I work with exporters throughout the region, but I also work with banks to try to help them be comfortable with the export nature of these types of loans. As Rich mentioned, they're not always comfortable with an export focused type loan. So on this export working capital program, as you can see from the slide, both EXIM Bank and SBA have export working capital programs. And, just kind of backing up to answer the question, I think the question was about, should I use my line of credit to fund working capital for an international order, or should I use cash? And I think, intuitively, we all kind of know that cash is king, right? So you want to hold on to your cash for most circumstances, unless you're just, so cash rich, you don't need a line of credit, of course, in that situation. That's a little bit different. But, what we're talking about here is really optimizing your cash conversion cycle. And what that means is that's kind of the conversion of the company's inventory and accounts receivable or accounts payable, the receivables and sales aspect of it, and turning that all back into cash. So, why is that important? We know that having that cash is king, and it helps support liquidity. So with these export working capital programs, you can obtain a specific line of credit to support your working capital needs related to a specific export contract or to support a portfolio of export receivables. With the SBA, the lines of credit are up to $5 million, and we can support both an asset-based structure, which means the line of credit is collateralized by receivables and by export inventory, or transaction-based financing, which is another way of saying kind of like purchase order financing. It's related to a large purchase order that the company received, and they need financing for that. In addition, the working capital loans can be used for the issuance of standby letters of credit, which are important when doing international business. And, with both EXIM Bank and SBA, the collateral requirements for standby letters of credit are very favorable. I guess a couple of differences between EXIM Bank and SBA is really the size. SBA goes up to a $5 million maximum. And then also SBA can support exports that have, there's no US content requirement. So if you have less than 51%, that's still eligible. And we also support defense and military export sales as well. Rick, I don't know if you want to.
excuse me, I just want to point out, because unfortunately the logos are not appearing in the PowerPoint. So the bullets under the left-hand side relate to the EXIM Bank and on the right to SBA, just so viewers are aware.
Yeah, and I'll just say also that, this is, in these cases, the banks are our customers, really. We're protecting their interest in the transaction. You're the beneficiary, obviously, because as an exporter, you'll be getting the loan. But the determination of which program to use is made by the bank. So they'll choose, so if you go in, for example, and say, hey, Joe was talking about this SBA program, I think it's great for me. And then they move into an XM program or vice versa. It's not a bait switch, type thing. They're essentially the same. You're going to benefit essentially the same. They're looking at which loan guarantee protects them and which best fits their portfolio for that transaction. I just wanted to make mention of that.
Perfect. I think we can move to the next slide. So this is just another question that relates to service providers. A lot of times service providers, don't realize that they are eligible for the export programs, even though they may not have inventory requirements like a manufacturer of products. Some service providers struggle with, are they eligible? So we can go to the next slide. Definitely eligible with the SBA. And just like a producer of goods, services are eligible for exports as well. Just for some examples, this could be like a company that provides engineering services or architectural services, a consultant type company, companies that do media, film and marketing communications. Those are very good fits for the program, as well as like industrial services. So with the Export Express program, it's really nice and ideal for kind of smaller companies or companies that are new to exporting. The maximum loan size is up to $500,000, and it can be used for really any legitimate business need, whether that be a short-term working capital line of credit or for more of a medium-term or longer-term need for equipment financing or real estate. We talked about the issuance of standby letters of credit. An Export Express loan can be used for that. So it's really kind of a very flexible type of a loan. And a good example is a company that we worked with last year. We actually provided them, or the bank provided them, with 3 separate Export Express loans. And the company was in the media and television content business, and they were selling this television content to a company or to a television station in Germany. And what they needed was some equipment financing for some camera equipment and that type of thing. They needed a working capital line of credit to help pay salaries and other expenses as they were producing this particular media. And then they also had a separate third line of credit that was used specifically for the issuance of standby letters of credit, because they would receive an advance payment from the European customer, and that customer wanted to have a standby letter of credit that would serve as a advance payment guarantee. So just from that example, you can see it's a very flexible program, can be used in a number of ways, and the banks that you work with can really help help you select the right loan structure for your business. And one thing I'll just leave you with is that the SBA, and I think I can speak for Rich, we're here to support your business, and we want to do everything possible to avoid any company ever losing an export loan because of financing. So, we're willing to go the extra mile. So reach out to us if you have any questions, if you want to discuss a specific financing opportunity, we're here to help. And our contact information's at the end. So thanks for your time and attention.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in one quick thing. You've seen, a lot of presentations here really quick. We all work very closely together. So you can lay out your issue with any one of us, and we'll help point you to the right resource if it's not us. So when you do have a conversation with me, Joe, Denise, whoever, you know, we'll try to put you in touch with some other resources we feel might benefit you and your company.
Okay, we have a few minutes left, so I do want to try and get to a few questions, but please note that the contact information for all of our presenters is currently on the screen, and the presentation will be shared with you after, so you'll have that contact information. One question that we do have is, my company offers project finance advisory services for infrastructure projects. We have close to over 125 billion worldwide, including 37 in renewable. As an example, we have qualified to be on the U.S. Department of Energy's standing list of financial advisors. So how can we position ourselves to advise EXIM Bank for its project finance deals? Maybe that is a question that you would like to address offline directly, or I don't know if you'd like to answer.
Yeah, you can you know, reach out to me. You give me a call or send me an email, and I can put you in touch with some folks in DC.
Very good, thank you. And then one question we have are, what are the interest rates for the express loan?
So the interest rates are, you know, they're really negotiated with the bank, the SBA lender. The SBA does have some maximum rates, and those are generally, you know, prime, between prime plus 2.5 to 275 is kind of the top end. So there is a cap on the interest rate, but that's something that the exporter can negotiate directly with the bank.
Great. And then we do have a question about getting the presentation, which will be shared with the participants after the event. I want to just ask the panelists, do either any of you would like to share any information as we're getting at the 10 o'clock time frame?
Thanks, Lisa. I'll reiterate Rich's point in that all of the agencies, all of the state and federal agencies on this call work really, really closely together. So if I'm talking to a company and there's a question that EXIM Bank might be better suited to answer, again, we work in a pretty tight ecosystem. So you're in good hands with any of the individuals who you've heard from today. And thanks again for your time today.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a good rest of the day.